All right, welcome to Waste Some Time with Jason Green. I'm Jason Green. New interviews every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. All kinds of other cool content on the other days. And make sure that you like and you subscribe so we can keep this going. Now, today we're going to have a cool conversation with Andy Timmons. Now, a lot of you probably know Andy is the lead guitar player from the band Danger Danger, but he's had an extensive solo career after that, and also was the musical director for Olivia Newton-John, so we got to get into that. And then he has all kinds of cool guitar instructional things that we're going to talk about as well. So we're going to get into all that right after this. All right, here he is joining us from Texas right now. Andy Timmons.
Awesome,
Look how fast.
Hey, Jason.
Yeah, I'm honored.
Good to see you, brother.
Yeah, when I wrote that song, I never thought that Andy Timmons would be performing it. So now it's now so much better.
I don't know about that, but yeah, man, good to see you.
Good to see you as well. I'm really glad you can do this, Andy. You know, you have an interesting career. A lot of the guys that I've had on here don't have one of those one things. You know, you're not the guy you can just go, "Oh, he was in Danger Danger," because there's much more than that.
Well, that's certainly the way that most people got to know me back in the day. I guess that was in the late 80s, maybe about 89 when that first record came out. But I was already, good Lord, what was I, 24 at that time? And I'd done a bunch of stuff, just, you know, not quite on the national level or international level, but, you know, I've been professional since I was about 16. So just bounced around a bunch of different bands. I'd been in music schools before that. I was a classical major for a couple of years and a jazz major my third and fourth years of college down in Miami. That took me to Texas, where I met the guys that I formed my power trio, the Andy Timmons band, with. And that first demo tape we did ended up in Bruno Ravel's hands in Rego Park, Queens, and that's how I got the Danger Danger gig. So
yeah, and it's pretty funny because, you know, you majored in jazz guitar at the University of Miami.
Yeah.
When you think of jazz guitar, you don't think naughty naughty.
No, I would hope you don't. That would not. But if you thought of me and you got to know me like before and after that, it would make total sense. The thing was, I mean, I grew up, you know, I was a Kiss guy. I had brothers that had all the 60s stuff growing up. So, you know, the British Invasion, Beatles, etc., were my foundation. But when it came time to I was buying my own records when I was, you know, 12 and 13. Kiss Alive was the first record I bought. And, you know, that's how I learned how to play guitar in my bedroom with my guitar and Ace Frehley. That was it. So the rock is the foundation. All the 70s rock, you know, Foghat and REO and Nugent and eventually Rush and that kind of stuff. That's how I learned how to play. That was my foundation. And the first band I was in from the age of 13 on till I left Evansville, Indiana at the age of 19, it was anything from the early foundation stuff to Steely Dan but by the age of 16, I was pretty confident the guitar was going to be my life, but I thought making it in the rock world was just like winning the lottery. It was such a long shot that I wanted to learn about all styles of music. I wanted to learn how to read. I thought about guys like Larry Carlton and Steve Lukather that were session players, and why not be able to play any kind of music? But unfortunately for me, I wasn't narrow-minded in the fact that, you know, I love rock and roll. That's my heart. But I mean, anything with a guitar in it, I wanted to know how to do it, right? And I just had a guitar teacher when I was 16 that started teaching me, you know, about some of the jazz stuff. But you know, going through all this learning through that period, always in a rock band, but then I started learning about classical. My first 2 years of college, I was a classical major, transferred to Miami. But it was all just kind of helping the broader palette of, you know, what I eventually would draw from, you know, post Danger Danger in my solo career and working with other artists from, like you mentioned, Olivia or Simon Phillips, a complete opposite end of the spectrum on the kind of high end fusion kind of stuff. But it wasn't a stretch for me when the Danger Danger gig came around to just go, I'm back at square one, you know, playing just some cool rock and roll that I love to do. And then eventually, you know, we mentioned the Kiss thing, or at least I did. You know, that was the first band I ever saw. The first concert was Kiss on the Destroyer tour, 1976.
And then you're touring with them.
And then we ended up touring with those. I mean, so talk about a childhood fantasy, you know, just kind of coming true. I couldn't have possibly dreamed that would have happened. Yeah, we did some dates on the Hot in the Shade tour. Then we did a couple of years later, we did the whole UK run of the Revenge Tour. So getting to see those guys every night and getting to hang with Gene and Paul, and of course originally it was Eric Carr and Bruce, and then of course Eric Singer came in after Eric Carr passed away. But they were just complete awesome guys to us and treated us so great. You know, there was definitely, because I was the only transplant. I was the only guy not from New York in Danger Danger. They were all New Yorkers, and of course Kiss very much a New York institution, right? So there was a New York camaraderie there that benefited, I think. But no, extremely fond memories, no doubt about that.
So I want to get into a little bit about the beginning of Danger Danger, because I don't think people completely understand it. So before you were in the band, Al Pitrelli was on guitar, who went on to do, he was in Megadeth, Trans-Siberian, Alice Cooper. So he was in there for a little while. And then a guy named Tony Ray, he played a lot of the guitar on the record. My question is, you guys had a deal. These guys recorded a record. How come they didn't stick around?
Well, I think, okay, so the story with Al, and he's got quite a history with Danger Danger, but went on to do many great things. But he was the original guitar player in the band when they got signed. And I was, of course, it was before my involvement, so I don't know what went south, whether it was either the producer or the A&R guy didn't get along with Al, or something wasn't working out. And so he parted ways before they started the record. And so I guess Bruno Ravel knew Tony. Tony Bruno is Tony Ray's real name. I think he probably goes by Tony Bruno now. It was Tony listed as Tony Ray on the record. Right. But he had a deal with his band Soraya at the time, and which was a great band, a great first record they made. So he agreed to do the record as a session guy, and so that's when they started the search for a permanent, guy to be in the band, to do the videos and tour. And that's where I came in. They just kind of put out a blanket statement like, "Hey, Danger Danger, there you go. Danger Danger's looking for a guitar player." So like they got tapes from all over the country, immediately. And it was a guy that I had met, a guy named Buddy Blaze, who was artist relations for Kramer Guitars. I'd been recommended to him actually for the band that became Bad English, was the first band I auditioned for. That's another bit of a long story, but that I got the gig, but it didn't pan out for various reasons. Neil Sean got involved, but it was right after that. Buddy says, "Hey, I've got this other band. They're looking for a guitar player. It's Danger Danger. They're signed to Epic. The record's done, but they need somebody to join the band." And I flew up and auditioned, and then auditioned again. They held another audition, and I got the gig. And it's kind of a part of a welcome to the band. They had mixed the record in Canada and weren't happy with it, so they hired Mike Stone, obviously famous for his work with Queen and Journey, to remix the record out in LA at Skip Saylor Studios. And so I just joined the band. So they had me in to re-record a couple solos to kind of get me on the record, which for me, so you got to understand, for me at that point, that was really one of my lifetime goals, to be on a record on a major label, idolizing Lukather and the Session Cats like I did. It was cool to be in the band, but it was also just to be on the record, have the name and the credit and all that, right? So that was a big deal, and obviously quite nervous sitting next to Mike Stone, who'd worked with, Brian May, Neil Sean, all these incredible, iconic guitar players. But it went great, and then that started the whole ball rolling. Then from there, we did some videos and got to start touring. And
well, this was the band that was so nice you had to name it twice, right?
and the first two singles, of course, yeah.
First two singles, Naughty Naughty, followed by Bang Bang.
Let's just say I heard about that occasionally, yeah. What's the deal? And again, I had nothing to do with any of those things, but it was I guess some kind of hook or a stick. I'm not sure how much they thought about it either. Bruno and Steve were really the heartbeat of the band. They were the songwriting team that really put the band together and got the deal, so to speak. So pretty much the brains and the songwriters behind the band. And then arguably when they found Ted became the sound of the band. That his voice is pretty unique. There's not a lot of guys that sound like that.
Yeah, but we're still talking about it.
That's a real early picture. I mean, I think that was at the what was the big Limelight, the big old church?
The church.
I think that photo shoot was at the Limelight, if I recall.
And what's crazy about this time was that in New York, well, first of all, Jerry Miller, rest in peace. She just passed away.
That's exactly my first thought when I saw that picture, because I think of being at the Limelight with Jerry many times. She was such a good friend.
Yeah, she really pushed these bands, and at this time, having your pinup in Metal Edge magazine was a big thing. It was probably more than about the music in that magazine. It was still getting that damn pinup in there. And if she liked you, Danger Danger was going to be in there every week, and you were going to know what Andy Timmons liked on his pizza and boxers or briefs, you know. But it was, people knew, and in New York. You know, Trickster and Danger Danger. These bands really. This was the Sunset Strip of New York City at that time, and it was
very much.
Yeah.
We definitely have Jerry and Jerry Miller and Metal Edge to thank for a lot of our exposure, no doubt about it. And she really, for whatever reason, you just decided she dug us and liked hanging around with us. But it wasn't uniquely special to us. There was so many bands in that scene. And it does seem like, and I recently went through a bunch of old, just trying to make space in my house and get stuff into storage or whatever, found a bunch of all these magazines that I'd saved when I lived up in New York. And it's just incredible the amount of photos and different bands that were in there. Some bands I might have forgotten about along the way, but went, oh my God, those guys. Yeah.
So you tried
it was a fun time. It certainly was, kind of just a different era of the music business and history.
Yeah, no, for sure, and it definitely, it stood out. Well, this is your solo record, but we don't want to get to that yet. Hold on.
Even though that picture was Central Park, obviously that Strawberry Fields. I think that was a picture for a 1992 Ibanez catalog that I eventually used for my solo record. Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about that a little bit. You got an Ibanez endorsement very early on, and a lot of the guys, and no disrespect to Danger Danger, but a lot of the guys who had those endorsements were in bigger bands, and you were sort of up there in the promotions and the clinics with guys like Steve Vai,
well, as I mentioned, the Buddy Blaze thing, my first bigger endorsement was Kramer. And so if you see the early like the Naughty video and Bang Bang, I'm playing the same Ibanez. It was, Kramer guitar. It was called the Holo Flash. It was a sustainer guitar. Had a real flashy that caught the light kind of finish on it. And so I was with Kramer at that time, and they very strangely went out of business. They were like the biggest guitar company. They had Eddie Van Halen, of course, and Richie Sambora, a lot of big endorsers. But oddly went out of business, I want to say 1990. So I was in an interesting position because I was in a band that was getting a lot of play on MTV. And at that point, regardless of your playing ability, most companies want to work with you because you're getting that exposure.
Yeah.
But so I'd met the artist relations guy from Ibanez at one of the NAMM shows. And I went to him because after looking around all the companies, Ibanez was kind of where I wanted to be, because of the players they had. I'm in this kind of, pop hair metal band, if you want to call it that. Mm-hmm. But I was looking at Vai and Satriani. Reb Beach was playing Ibanez at the time, and they just had and Paul Gilbert. There was those guys that were renowned for their playing, not just the look and whatever bands they were in, right? So I thought that's where I'd like to be. And they honestly were like, well, we're not big fan of your band, but they'd heard my instrumental recordings that became that first instrumental CD called Ear X-Tacy. So, but we love your playing, and we'd love to have you on board. And that's what started that. And that was 1991, I think. So Danger Danger was kind of still firing on all cylinders at that point when I started working with Ibanez.
Yeah. Well, so this is the follow-up. Right? Yeah. Screw it. 91. You speak of 91, here it is.
There it is. This is 1991 as it gets, I suppose. In my life anyway.
Yeah, and so now this is becoming a difficult time for bands to compete.
Well, yeah, I think, and if you're referencing just the terrain was changing considerably. The Seattle thing was happening quite a bit. Rap was happening, and we literally had, at that point, after having a couple of really successful videos with MTV, we had MTV telling us, "Don't even bother making videos. We don't like your band. We don't like you guys." But here's this band Pearl Jam, we're going to make them the biggest band. That literally was said, so it's all right. Well, so it was kind of, by the time this record came out, I think, a lot of our fans, and there was a considerable fan base, didn't even know we had a second record, because MTV was so powerful at that point. If you didn't have a video playing, radio wouldn't have had you.
Yeah.
You know, it was really driven by MTV at that point. So obviously there's no music on the channel anymore, but back then that was the power they wielded. So
yeah, I think this record definitely got lost in the shuffle.
it did.
Yeah.
And there's you know, there's it's a double-edged sword, because I think there's some amazing material on there, and there's some stuff where, you know, the lyrics were pretty much, you know, destined for the strip clubs. So, you know, that was part of the vibe of the time, at least for the, you know, for the writers, right? It was like, yeah, it's just good time, sex, whatever, and that's cool. But again, as somebody that also wanted to garner some of the musical respect, there's those moments on there. So that was a little difficult for me to straddle at that time, you know.
I get it. Yeah. And so, Andy, one of the things I've always wondered about your career is that, because you're an exceptional musician, and Danger Danger doesn't it doesn't sum up who you are as a player. And again, no disrespect to that band. But, you know, I remember in New York seeing you, I think it was at the China Club, doing a clinic with Red Beach.
Yeah.
And musicians knew, you know, that there was so much more to your playing. And I always wondered, were there other bands that were looking for you at the time? Were you ever thinking about, you know, I'm surprised a guy like David Lee Roth or Alice Cooper or someone like that didn't come knocking?
Well, there's been things like that along the way. In fact, it wouldn't have been much longer after that the Winger tried to get me to join, because they had Paul Taylor as their second guitar player, keyboard player, and he left the band. And I'd already been friends with Reb. You know, he and I were getting pretty tight. Just loved hanging with the guy, and obviously an amazing player.
Mm-hmm.
And so then Kip was really kind of, you know, after me, and I ended up playing on all of Kip's solo stuff when he started doing solo records.
It's great. Those records are great. You know, I've worked with Winger for a while, and Kip has amazing solo records, and especially
that first one, I think it just came up on the 20th or 25th anniversary. This Conversation Seems Like a Dream is still one of the favorite records I've ever been a part of. It was just so organic and just so deep. I just thought that was an amazing statement for him to make, you know, after Winger and after the abuse that Winger took from Beavis and Butthead and Metallica, or
they were another band
specifically, but you know, it was just unfortunate that was the one band of that genre that were all monster players and amazing guys. You know, it just made no sense. But you know, somebody's got to be a poster boy scapegoat. But how
come you didn't end up in Winger?
What's that now?
How come you didn't end up in the band?
I was still in Danger Danger, and I'm a very loyal person.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not that I would have gelled great with the Winger guys. In fact, that, you know, quite obviously it's Rod and Kip and me on his first solo record. So that's kind of where that might have headed eventually. So it kind of did work out. But again, I was in a band. I was committed. That the last thing I would do is, you know, jump ship just for some other opportunity, you know. And it wasn't until, you know, we made the third album for Epic, and then it was clear that it was not going to come out. You know, first they jumped up and down like, this is the greatest record, oh, you guys, you know. And then there was all kinds of issues between Ted and Bruno and Steve, and there was lawsuits, and then next thing we know, Paul Lane had come in to re-sing the vocals, and then the label just decided they're not going to release it. So it wasn't until after all that went down and it was even Bruno that was like, yeah, you can hang out here, or you can go back to Texas, you know, and kind of in a way making it okay for me to jump when it was clear it was the best thing for me to do. You know, he was cool to recognize that, and also probably cool to recognize the fact that I was struggling with what the right thing to do was, you know. So that's when I ended up coming back to Texas, whether it been 93 or 94, finished up all the recordings that I'd already been doing with my band, and that became that first solo record.
Yeah, and just to wrap up, though, a little bit on Danger Danger, that record you referenced came out many years later with Paul singing, right? And Ted. You get both versions.
Ted, yeah. They released both versions. The thing was when they decided not to release it, you know, when a band gets dropped from the label and there's an unreleased record, sometimes the label will make it available that they can buy it back.
Right.
You know, but the tag they put on it was like $250,000 or something crazy. You know, it was just but it was career defined. It defined my path going on till this day. And that is why would I work so hard on something that doesn't belong to me? It was heartbreaking because we really thought we'd made a great record. But the next thing you know, it's like, well, nobody's going to get to hear this. It's not ours. It's not mine. All that work, it's like,
Yeah.
so from then on, when I put that first record out, I didn't send it to a single label. Cause at that point I realized that I thought that might be what I wanted, but being in it and kind of witnessing from the inside the quote unquote label industry as it existed at that time is like, well, it's so far removed from the actual music and the players and the people, the humanity of it. It's like, I'm just going to do my own thing, make my own music, fund it however I can, and then get it out there. So I just basically released it on my own. And then I got contacted when there was a friend of mine that worked for the label in Japan, the division of Sony that Danger Danger was on. Said, why didn't you send me this record? I want to license it. I want to put it out. So everything since then has just kind of organically happened. But it's the music that I've wanted to make and for the right reasons, right? I'm not chasing some commercial tail or trying to be something. I just try to make the music that's in my heart and keep improving. I just strive each day still to practice and to learn and to keep growing as a player and as a writer.
Well, so many people that I've interviewed on here, especially guitar players, have those same feelings. I talked to Steve Lynch, who was in the band Autograph.
Oh, tremendous talent.
Yeah, and I said to him, how come, one of these bands didn't pick you up? And he said for a little while Alice Cooper was an option, but he was really uncomfortable playing somebody else's career and not being able to create. And yesterday I had Ron Thal, Bumblefoot from Guns N' Roses. And he had the same kind of thing, that there wasn't really a place for him in the direction that Guns N' Roses was going. And he makes music because he loves it. And that's the same with you. You've had this long career of solo albums and your session work. So I think maybe this is more fulfilling for you than going out and playing somebody else's music every night.
It depends on the person. You mentioned Olivia early on, and that kind of raises an eyebrow for some people. But it's down to the person and the music. And I love her. That was a quirky, accidental thing that happened. She had breast cancer in the early 90s and retired. She just kind of went to her ranch in Australia and decided that was it. I'm going to take care of my daughter. But she got her toe back in the water that's a nice picture. In the late 90s. And so that photo is probably 2000, 2001, maybe. I got a call from Simon Phillips, actually. Andy, fancy working with Olivia Newton-John? I'm like, what are the hours, right? But she was coming to the U.S. and she used an Australian band. There's that backs a guy named John Farnham, who's like the Springsteen of Australia. This really huge star over there, packed stadiums, multiple nights. They were coming over to back her up, but one of the guitar players couldn't make it. So Toto's management that Simon was in at the time, Toto, managed Olivia, and they just put the feelers out. Hey, we need a guitar player. And Simon recommended me, knowing my work ethic. And so that tour went so well, they saw that I had my act together. I came in having all the material wired and played, and they said, well, let's if you want to do this gig, we'll make you the music director. We'll put a band together, and we'll have a U.S. based band instead of bringing these guys over from Australia every time. So that turned into about 15 years of work. And it was kind of perfect because she only they were ripping up the solo and physical right there. She'd sing a harmony with me. It's and again, she would do a few weeks here and there. It wasn't like a dedication. Okay, you can only do this. She loved that I had my own career, but she treated me great, and it's just a fantastic person. Now, along those 15 years, I would have had offers from, and I won't mention other bands, but bands that would be much more in line with the rock and roll thing that maybe people know me for. But again, I'd be stepping in some shoes that maybe either wouldn't be easy to fill, or if I didn't think I would like the personalities I was with. The older I got,
now I'm fascinated.
Was that?
Now I'm fascinated what you passed on.
Yeah, I don't talk about it much because I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. It was not a personal thing. It's just stuff that I thought, I'm gonna leave. And it really started to be a matter of, especially after my son was born. If I'm gonna leave home, it better be with people that I really love, or be my own thing. I like you're talking with Ron, the way he was feeling with Guns N' Roses. That was one call. I got a call from Ron at one point when they were looking for somebody else in the band next to him. But Axl's reputation at the time was like, am I gonna leave my family to not It just seemed like, yeah, I was honored that Ron even thought of me, but I just didn't think that was going to be the best thing. It was so great. I will say I got to see the first part of the reunion Guns N' Roses tour, and I couldn't have been more ecstatic. Kind of fell into it. The last got a ticket the day of the show. Axl couldn't have been greater, and Slash. I mean, the whole band, Slash. They all sounded better than ever, and I'm thinking sobriety has a huge part of that.
Yeah, and they did pull it off. That reunion did work for them. But I was going to say about this Olivia Newton-John, you still were being creative. You know what I mean? As a musical director, you had something to do with the way that this show flows. And I think Olivia Newton-John's one of these underrated people. I don't think people know how extensive her music is.
She's extremely versatile. She's incredible. So for me, I mean, the way I treated my time with her, I mean, the most difficult thing with her is like, what top 10 hits are we going to leave out? We don't have enough time to do all these amazing tunes that she's got in her catalog, because she started off early with kind of country stuff from, If Not For You, which was a Bob Dylan, George Harrison cover. And If You Love Me, Let Me Know, Let Me Be There. And then, Honestly Love You, then the Grease stuff, and then the Jeff Lynne stuff. And John Farrar wrote all these great songs for her. So much to choose from, but she continued to record. So she had, all kinds of different material over the years, even some like jazz standard kind of stuff. She knows every freaking song. We could hang out at sound check and just jam. She knows every Beatles tune, every show tune, jazz standards. Incredible. So, but the way I treated the gig was I just wanted, I'm coming at it like I'm the fan in the seat. What do I want to see? I'm not concerned about blonde hair guitar player up there shredding. I want to hear those tunes the way that I know them. So I really tried to get the band to play as authentically as I could, depending on the tune. Whatever era it was from, I want to present it in as authentic a fashion as we could. And we had a great band. Members would change occasionally, but primarily it was people that were like-minded with me, where I could have had a book with the charts and here's the tunes, but no. I never wanted that. I just listened to the record, learn exactly the part, exactly the sounds, not just that's a G augmented chord. That's not going to work. We wanted the exact voice, so it was fun for me to replicate those tunes and to make her, because at that point, it's not about me being creative. It's about making her shine. These are her fans, and she's got a diehard bunch of, multi-generational. There'd be kids that are 8 having just seen Grease for the first time, and people in their 80s and 90s that loved her when they were adults. So it was a fun time. And she's not working so much now. Her cancer has come back a third time. She's in remission again, so she's a tough lady, and I've never seen somebody so gracious and somebody that's used their power for good. She's done a lot for cancer awareness, and it was an honor to work with her all these years, and maybe we'll do something again someday. I hope.
Yeah, let's hope that she'll be strong, because like you said, somehow she keeps fighting. So hopefully
she's coming back, man. She's irrepressible. So, but we're in touch. She's always sending me funny emails and stuff. So
that's great. Yeah,
you're doing great,
Andy. I got to say, so there's you so much session work and playing, and everyone knows how great your playing is. I love. I went on YouTube, and I enjoyed seeing. You're at a Steve Vai concert, and Steve Vai comes into the audience and just hands you his guitar, and you play perfect.
That was a crazy moment, because I've known Steve since the late 80s, and then when I start working with Ibanez, he's obviously a legendary Ibanez guy, and so we ended up on some Ibanez concerts together. And then when the G3 thing with Satriani started rolling, anytime they were in Dallas, they would invite me to come out and sit in, which was a huge honor, But this particular gig, he was in Dallas, and it was, I think, the Passion and Warfare anniversary, or it was a big anniversary, one of his records. And it was a pretty lengthy production. He says, "Man, I'd love to invite you to play, but there's a lot going on. But come to the gig, and I'll see you after the show." So me and my wife and my bestie Sylvia, the three of us go to the show, right? And it had been a long show. It was coming up on 2.5 hours. So the song was, they were playing this song. It was pretty obvious this is going to be the last tune. So the girls go to the restroom. We're like, "We'll be right back," because we figure we're going to go see Steve after the show. They're going to go freshen up. Great. They leave, hold my water. We'll be right back. And so then you see what unfolds. Steve wanders off the stage. He's got Thomas with him, his trusty tech. And he knew I was there, but he had no idea where I was sitting. So whoever filmed that video, you can see the complete look of surprise on his face. He sees me there down the aisle, and then but the beautiful thing is, like, he didn't even think about it. He just whips off the guitar and hands it to me. But as he's handing it to me, he starts to hand me his pick, right?
I noticed.
Dude, I've already got a pick in my hand. Are you kidding me? Don't ever go to a show without a pick in your pocket, because you just never know. That's the way I feel, because I mean, ever since going to shows when you're a kid, you're like, oh man, I want to,
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Somebody's going to trip and fall. They're going to need me. I'm going to put me in, coach. Anyway, so what a selfless thing for him to do, just to hand me the guitar.
And made it for such a great moment. People can go on YouTube and see that. And another one similar, I see you're at an Eric Gales show. And not everyone knows who Eric Gales is, but he's an incredible guitar player.
One of my top 5 favorite guitar players ever. Just
he's outstanding.
Yeah.
But so he's a lefty though.
Yeah.
And so explain to me, because I wasn't sure what I was seeing in the video. He invites you on stage with his left-handed guitar.
So I've played with him a bunch too, and he was at I think it must have been here at the Guitar Sanctuary here in McKinney. But that night it wasn't going to work out that we're going to play, but he invites me up anyway. So he plays lefty, but it's a right-handed guitar upside down, a la Albert King.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it can be turned over, and then it makes sense, right? See, and he's got a special strap or something that can whip around, and I think that might be what happened. I'm not sure the exact video you're talking about, but we jammed together when I have my normal guitar and that. But I do remember the night that he did that, but I haven't watched the video. So
I think that's what it was.
I hope it went down okay.
Yeah, well, it was great, but he was showing you how the strap changes. But I remember thinking, one, obviously how great you played, but I was also thinking, so this guy literally plays the guitar upside down.
Oh yeah, watch him. It's crazy, and it's like Albert King did too. So the highest the high E is on the top of the guitar. So I'm bending up, but he's bending down from up here, right? But he's got one of the largest souls I've ever heard come through a guitar, and the way he floats over time is just absolutely incredible. He just has such a unique, and it's something that his family had. He had a very famous guitar playing brother named Little Jimmy King, and so it was his oldest brother that was playing with Albert King as a backup guitar player. So he called himself Little Jimmy King, but it's actually one of twins. It's Manuel and Daniel. Anyway. Great guitar playing, and then they had the Gales Brothers band, right? His brother played bass,
which had a little MTV, play.
Yeah, they did, right? That first record came out. I think Eric was 17.
Yeah, I think he was a kid. I think they had a song called "Sign of the Times."
Yeah,
"Sign of the Storm." But and they had a little play. But he is one of those guys that maybe didn't become the household name that he should have, but
and he had some rough times too. He got in trouble with the law on some things and had some substance issues, but he's been sober now for many years, doing great. I'm so proud of him, and proud to call him a friend, and truly a hero, man. He just got such a bright light, and I'm glad that he's doing great. So we need him.
Yeah, for sure. And anyway, another fun video of seeing you sit in with all these guys. And
well, man, it's like I say, it's just an honor to cross paths with some of my favorite players, and to be asked to play, it's I don't take it lightly.
So let's talk about this here. This is the most recent of your solo projects. This is the Andy Timmons Band, and Themes from a Perfect World. So tell me a little bit about this one. And, I want to point out that we're going to link all this stuff in the description.
Great.
So if anyone wants to buy this stuff, one, it helps support this channel, but also it helps, support the music. And, you're going to hear some incredible guitar playing. So tell me about this one.
Yeah, that was the most recent record. Embarrassingly enough, that was 2016. So it's been a minute since our last release, but there's lots of stuff coming. That was basically myself and Mike Dane, my bass player since the late 80s. He's got a killer studio at his home now. And so a couple different drummers on the tracks, the original drummer for the Andy Timmons Band, Mitch Marine, and then also our most recent touring drummer and session drummer, a guy named Rob F. Sherry. And we're blessed to have two great drummers in the family. And I don't know, it's the the two studio records that preceded this, which was a record called Resolution and another record called ATB Play Sgt. Pepper, where we redid the whole Beatles Sgt. Pepper record strictly as power trio. Those two records were recorded without any additional instrumentation, meaning there was only one guitar performance, bass and drums. So very sparse, coming from, the type of guitar records we've been making in the 80s and some of the 90s, where lots of rhythm guitars, lots of layering, maybe keyboards. So it just became kind of overdone. And so going the complete opposite direction and stripping it all back was such a natural thing, but a very difficult thing to do as well, because you tend to hide behind some of this production, right? But by the time we got around to this record, I was still writing a lot of material to be performed as trio, but then we decided, why not maybe get a little piano in there, maybe a little bit of extra guitar. So we kind of gave ourselves the keys to the toy chest again. Mm-hmm. So at that point, though, it became fun and became like, oh man, I forgot about this type of thing. This is kind of fun again. So it's just kind of seeming over the course of the career, it's just good to kind of change directions and try to go down different paths to keep it fresh. You don't want to bore yourself. If you're boring yourself, you're definitely going to bore the audience. So I find myself, in those times, not regularly, but that, you start to recognize, okay, yeah, I'm kind of feeling that. And I need to figure out the next way to go. So in the meantime, I love being a part of other projects. There's a record that just came out. I just did with the Bissonette brothers, Greg and Matt Bissonette, called the Red Coats, REDD in Coats.
Yes.
Just kind of, hey, there's those kooky knuckleheads. I mean, Greg is one of the greatest drummers ever out there. And his brother Matt just happens to play incredible bass. And
we should explain, Andy, just in case there aren't musical people, experts watching. Matt Bissonette and Greg Bissonette, they're brothers. They both played with Satriani. They both played with David Lee Roth on the Skyscraper tour.
That's right.
Matt was with Rick Springfield and then went to Elton John.
He's been with Elton, yeah.
And these guys are incredible. And so talk about some great musicians on this. And I listened to it, and you need to explain what the music is, because it's different. So you tell me about this.
That's a very good point, because what the heck is it? Well, it's all centered around Matt Bissonette's genius. He's just a great singer and songwriter. But, with his brother and recruiting me, Mike Medina on percussion and Wally Minko on keyboards, the band can kind of do anything. It's a player's kind of record, but there's a pop sensibility. But you're liable to hear, a 10-minute drum solo in a tune. So there's kind of fusion, kind of funk, kind of Latin, kind of rock. It's just kind of everything. Put everything in the kitchen sink. Just having fun. Let's not have any preconceptions. But it was all done remotely. It was all done kind of via emails, and I did some of the guitar work here and some at Mike Medina, who lives a couple towns over. But I was honored. I mean, these, Matt and Greg have played with every great guitar player out there. So, for them to ask me to do it was an honor, and they seem happy with it. So we're trying to, we're going to probably do some gigs there. We're trying to go to Italy in July. It feels a little soon for me, I just want to be safe, but I would love to play some gigs with these guys too and see what happens. Yeah,
for sure. It's definitely really cool, and I'll have a link for this too. And they have a great website.
Yes, you can get on iTunes or Amazon now if you want the physical copy.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are collecting physical copies of things again. It's sort of
right.
It's sort of back. So anyway, Andy, you have an interesting fan base. There's the fans, who Danger.
Right.
And then you have the guitar. Well, you have Olivia and all these other projects done, but then you have the guitar fans. So I would be missing an opportunity not to talk a little bit about guitar with you. And and I should point out, and because you brought out the guitar. I appreciate that. I think maybe you're just uncomfortable talking without it.
No, even if I didn't play anything, this is comfort land. You're right. This is my whoopee.
But so I want to mention before we talk a little bit about the guitar that you're playing right now, I want to talk about Andy Timmons' guitar experience.
Yeah, experience, right? No E, experience.
Yeah, and this is where people can really sign up and get lessons with you. And so tell me, as somebody who might be new to guitar playing or someone who wants to better themselves, what can you offer them?
Yeah. So this is, it's not, the site's really not for complete beginners, but what I've been doing over it's been 3 years now, I'm going through my entire catalog, and every month I add a new song. So we've got the song of the month. And so I do, where you'll see me on camera and I play the tune. So you get a performance of the song. But then I basically do another hour and a half to 2 hours of tutorials where I tell you everything about the song, how I recorded it, what gear I used, what inspired the song, and show you note for note how to play the whole thing. And it's also transcribed in regular notation, guitar, tablature, or it can play in a program called Guitar Pro, which actually shows you the notes and plays it for you in this digital platform. So there's a lot of detail, a lot of information that comes along with that. That is good for intermediate players to the very advanced player. Mm-hmm. So part of it is, it's very much instructional, but I think some people find it entertaining because I'm going through and just explaining all these things. A lot of which are things that kind of I developed naturally just from a lifetime of playing. So in real time, I'm kind of analyzing as I'm playing these licks and showing you the components of the song, and I'm kind of having to figure out as I go a way of verbalizing something that I may have done instinctively all these years, but over time I've gotten pretty good at it. So there's an annual membership that's available, or a monthly, and then you obviously get different levels of content. But there's also different areas where I have like a lifetime of photos of, whenever I've met any of my heroes, I get a photo. And so instead of saying, here's a picture of me with the Rolling Stones or with Ringo, I narrate and I tell the stories. So there's lots of biographical stuff, lots of stories of all the people that I've met along the way, and some cool videos that aren't out on the social media and stuff.
Who's the big one for you, Andy?
The biggest one
that you got to meet?
Well, Ringo is up there. Brian Wilson, who I've met a few times now. He won't remember, but I do. Mm-hmm. I mean, oh gosh, and so many of the people that I would be saying were thrilled to meet just happen to now be friends and people I've played with. When you think about Eric Johnson and Mike Stern, Satriani and Vi, Lukather, one of my biggest influences of all time, is also one of my biggest supporters. He's such a sweet guy, man. So some of those guys I would put at the top of the list, Yeah,
it's great when you meet somebody who influenced you, and then it's a good experience. My guitar teacher when I was in high school was this guy, Nick Bocott from.
Oh my God, of course.
Yeah, and he wrote the Circus Magazine, Guitar Magazine columns. But I was a young kid. I was into punk music, and my hero was Johnny Ramone. That's why I bought a guitar.
Wow, nice.
I ran into him in the Village in New York, and he stood and talked to me for an hour. And
oh shit, you're kidding.
Changed my life, And so I told Nick, and he goes, "You're so lucky." He told me I met my heroes, and his were like, I think it was Beck and Page, and he just said it. And oh boy, were they not, they weren't friendly, So
well, you catch somebody on the wrong day,
mm-hmm.
but that's so cool that he hung with you, man, and was sweet.
When you have that experience, because I think to them, you hear these things every day. But when you touch somebody, they carry that with them for a lifetime.
No, it's and it's something that all of us need to remember, regardless of where we are in career or life. It's just, you can make the biggest difference in somebody's day just by freaking being cool to somebody.
And it's
just
not that
saying
hard.
Hi to somebody, that you don't know, when they just might need that smile, or just somebody being nice to them when maybe not everybody's being nice to them. You know what I mean? But certainly as somebody where I'm in a position where if people are at my gig and coming to see me, I'm going to make time for any and everybody that is there that wants to say hey or have a minute, because I'm always cognizant of that. It might mean something to them, and why not just, even if you're in the worst mood ever, it's just, man, make that effort to make it cool for them, because again, it may be the only time they get to hang with you, and you want them to go away with something positive.
Yeah, and it's motivating. When you meet your favorite guitar player, someone who's came out to see you, and
right,
it motivates them to keep doing what they do. I want to point out for people who want to see you play, because right now we're in this middle of this pandemic. There's obviously no live shows, but you can go to Stage It. And Stage It's this great streaming website, and people can.
Yes, I've been. We mentioned before we went to the record here that I'd seen a friend of mine. He's in a band called Bowling for Soup. Do you know those guys?
Oh, yeah.
Jarrett Reddick, he didn't live that far from me, but he was in my Facebook feed, and I kept seeing he was doing these gigs on stage. This is right when the lockdown was about to happen. I was like, oh man, and all the tours are canceling. I'm like, what are we gonna do? And I just DM'd him and said, man, you got to show me how to do this. And he, oh man, no problem. I'll hook you up with the guy. He can show you. And just the funny thing though, and I've told him this, is that I saw that he was advertising, got a gig this Saturday, 2 p.m. US and then 8 p.m. UK, which I took to mean that he was doing 2 shows. Mm-hmm. But clearly he was just like, well, he's doing 1 show, and with a time difference, it's 2 o'clock and then 8 o'clock over in the UK. But in my mind, I quickly got my mind, okay, I'm going to do 2 shows every Saturday. Mm-hmm. And so I've done that, except I took the last month off because after I did 87 shows in a row, I was pretty crispy. But I'm back doing it. I started back 2 weeks ago. And so every Saturday, 2 o'clock and 8 o'clock Central. And you get on stageit.com and just type in Andy Timmons Official. And it's a real easy platform to get in. And it's literally pay what you want. I mean, I'm just happy for people to show up. The thing about it is you can get in for 50 cents or whatever, but the people that, can contribute if they want to pay $10, they pay $10, and that's cool. And they can tip you. So, and I offer different levels of incentives where the top supporter gets an hour Skype lesson with me. The next top 5 get like a signed CD. So there's a lot of people that come on that just want to be generous. They want to support their favorite artists, or one of theirs, I should say, and are being cool. And that's again, without the ability to tour and stuff, it's been a great saving grace for me and my family that I have some gigs on the weekend. And what's ended up happening is that there's a lot of people that come to every gig because there's a message board while I play. People can interact with me. They're posting comments, and I'm responding to that, but they're also talking amongst each other. So it kind of, without any social interaction, it gave them a place to go and look forward to every Saturday, to have a place to hang out. It's so important, man. It's that we congregate together with a common love of music and the camaraderie,
For sure. And one of the points I was making you earlier was, you're not just some jackass on his couch with like, a candle, You have a good setup, you've got good sound, and so people are going to get a good experience. And like you said, it is pay what you can, so there's no pressure. You can go in and join, and people who have will give, and people who want to win these cool prizes will.
If they just want to, again, pay 50 cents and come hang out, I'm so glad you're there. And this is like, we're just happy anybody cares at this point in our career, because there's so much out there, and you feel like, well, man, if I've got a friend, I'm not worried about the money. Though obviously it's nice to have some fans that do want to be generous, but man, it's just nice that people are taking the time to go out of the way to spend the time with you. So I don't take it for granted. And I've gone through great lengths to try to get the audio and video quality as good as I can. I've had a lot of people comment that that's some of the best that they've heard online. So I appreciate that. I'm always tweaking my tone and trying to get things better,
Well, as soon as I saw you, I knew that I was in for a good interview, because I have some people who come and you would think that it's like Green Acres and they have to climb up the pole to get phone reception in the backyard.
Get Fred Ziffel and Arnold the pig to
completely
start the generator.
2 cans and a string, I think I'd get a better reception. So when I saw you, I go, this guy has got a setup. Andy, I got to ask you first, tell me about the guitar you're playing. And then, I got to ask you to play something before you leave.
Sure. This is actually the first prototype of what became my signature guitar. This is the AT100 Ibanez. So it's basically like an old Strat, maple neck, no finish on the neck. It used to have Ace Frehley's signature on the back, but it wore off, unfortunately. I even lacquered over it. But it's been my main guitar since 94. It's in tune sometimes.
Nice.
Yeah, I can cover some ground with this one.
Yeah, what a great guitar.
What's that?
What a great guitar. And, it's just it's a cool guitar. This is not like, in 89, everyone had to have these shiny, silly cuts and,
Yeah, well, I did. I had some of the, like I said, that Kramer Hollow Flash was a pretty gaudy, flashy guitar, but it worked. It caught the lights and caught attention. And then Ibanez built me an RG style body before this one that had black guitar with purple pickups. That was pretty cool looking. But in my heart, I was just loving vintage guitars. Eric Johnson had an old Strat that was a 2-tone burst and maple neck. I thought, man, I just want something like that. Kind of go back to the original basics,
Yeah.
Well, and like I say, I own a few guitars, let's just say. I love all of them, but this is the one that's just kind of home, just kind of what I play the bulk of my material on.
Yeah. So, okay, I want to make sure that everyone, because we had a lot of ground to cover, we want to make sure, Stage It, that's the easiest. Yeah. Every Saturday, 2 and 8. It's amazing. He's doing 2 and 8 because he thought somebody else was doing it on UK time. And so he actually is doing it. So 2 and 8 Central, you can join in. It's super, Stage It is super easy. And then the Redcoats, Matt and Greg Bissonette, that record's available now. And of course,
two D's in the Redcoats. There's another band with 1 D. So,
well, and I was
get the wrong Redcoats.
I was going to say, you Google Redcoats and you see a completely different thing.
2 D's, man.
Yeah, which is not so bad. Yesterday, I had to Google Bumblefoot. Oh my God!
Really?
Yeah, it's a disease. I
didn't know that.
It's like a turkey foot disease or something.
Oh boy, I never really thought about where that name came from, Ron.
His wife was a veterinarian, saw it in like some book. But you got to be careful what you Google these days.
There's a good version of he and I and Paul Gilbert doing Detroit Rock City on YouTube.
Really?
If you ever want to see that,
look,
he's an incredible singer. Of course, he's an insanely great guitar player. But man, that guy can sing. I would do a Kiss tribute band with him any day.
Did you know that he's singing in Asia now?
No. Wow.
Yeah.
All right then.
All you guys have these odd careers. It's like
it is pretty amazing. But I mean, thank God we've got some other things to do. I'm just happy to be busy. Yeah.
And so also we should mention Guitar Experience one more time. Yeah. I'll have all these links to make it easier.
Yeah. Guitar Experience, guitarexperience.net. That's the subscription site. If you want to learn some stuff and hang out with me, we can do that.
Yeah. And, I say to everybody who comes on, a lot of us are at home right now, but this is a great time to listen to music and to catch up on music that you might not have known. Right. And so you have a whole body of work. It's easy to get music these days.
Sure.
And so, brush up. And for guitar players, I think they're going to be blown away to see what you've been up to.
Well, thanks, Jason. I appreciate that very much, man. I hope I can get to Vegas and sit in with your band, man.
Yeah, I hope so too. We need some talent in the band. So,
shit. No, anyway, man, I'm sure you guys are killing.
Yeah, well, I'd love to have you out here, and the future is open. So, anyway, I want to thank you for sitting in. It's been a lot of fun, and remind people to go visit Andy's links that are in the description and subscribe to the channel so that we can keep doing it. All right, Andy, I'll let you have it.
Thanks, Jason. Great to meet you, man. Great to hang with you. Really enjoyed it.
You too. Thank you.